Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video.
My 25 male, wife 27 female, and I recently had and things aren't going well. So there's a lot to unpack here, so pardon the length. Before I begin, I'd want to compile a list of the issues on which I'd like to get advice, so you can keep it in mind as you read. Thank you for taking the time to read this and provide me with your impartial comments. Is it possible that I'm being excessively self-centered? Am I being unfair? Is it conceivable that I'm completely incorrect? What can I do to help her understand me better? My wife and I had been together for 9 years before getting married last month. We spoke about the possibility of a back in August. She said that she wanted to do it with a girl. Then I said that I think it would be more enjoyable to do it with a guy for her, not me. Let us return to our wedding night. We were both fairly inebriated by the end and had somehow invited one of my friends to the hotel. We carried out the deed despite the fact that we were all much too drunk to comprehend much of it. So we decided to go again the next weekend, this time a bit less tipsy. Everything about it was wonderful. We had a great time together. So we decided to try again the following weekend. This is when everything started to go wrong. Following this session, I realized she was much more enthused about him than I was. But I get what you mean. Aside from me, this is her only previous experience. That is not why I am upset/hurt. What bothered me was the fact that I had inquired about her favorite dish. She said that it was causing her to lose her head without my assistance. That irritated me since she has previously said that she does not like giving head. So that just says to me that she hates giving me head. I also told her to go get my friend from the living room later that night. He couldn't get it up, so I told her she had to bring him back any way she could, so we could continue with the night. After 8 minutes, however, no one had returned. She was giving him the head on the couch when I came out. I didn't mind at the time and just went with it. I later found out that they had both forgotten about me and had moved on with their lives. I chose to express my feelings to her, and she confessed that she had made errors. I told her I'd been having a nice time through it all, but I needed proof from her that I was still her first priority. I tried to start contact with her for a week following that, but she said she wasn't in the mood. We didn't go out with my friend the next weekend, but we did it eventually. The next week was her menstruation, so nothing would happen, which I'm okay with. That weekend, though, one of the 3 of us went to an event with our pals. We agreed to give it a try the following morning, but my wife refused to do anything. She did, however, state that she would be willing to give us her head. We went to another party together the next week. She did it again that night. It was still inside her week, but he fled before anything happened. What got me thinking was that she always mentioned she didn't want to give me head while she was on her period since she couldn't get anything in return. She did, however, offer it to both of us twice in a week. This last weekend, we did it again, and everyone had a great time. But I can't get the notion out of my mind that she doesn't love giving head all that much, especially during her week. But what she does when he's around is entirely different. We've been married for barely 6 weeks. We've done it 5 times as a group and once as individuals. We should have done it more often during the week/weekend, rather than simply once every 6 weeks, in my view. I've mentioned it to her a few times recently. I tried to hold it in at times, but she can tell something's wrong with me, so she puts pressure on me. When I first told her, she answered that she understood what I was saying. After a few weeks, nothing had changed, so I brought it up again and she got outraged, trying to explain why I keep bringing it up after pretending I'm over it. She was devastated and wanted to try to mend our connection. She took me out on a date, and it was on that night that we finally got together as a couple for the first time, week 4 of our marriage. Today, though, I made a mistake. This morning, I started thinking about the whole head issue. She took me out on another date night, and after a few drinks, I just blurted out everything that was going through my head. She was furious with me for ruining her date night. I accept that I made a mistake. I should have told her sooner, or at the very least after date night. But we were discussing the whole topic, and I simply started saying something that avalanched into all of my thoughts and feelings. She's annoyed that I keep bringing it up. She claimed that it is my fault since I'm the one who begins therefore I shouldn't be angry at her. I tried to convince her that it wasn't that concerned me. It was my wife's displeasure with the lack of care I was showing to her as a husband. It was too late at that point, and we were too enraged. Right now, I'm at a loss on what to do. That is why I'm writing you this note. And before anybody else says anything, I know she loves and cherishes me from the bottom of her heart. This is really a new experience for her, and she's completely immersed in it. My impression is that she just does not understand my feelings. That is what I am searching for advice on. I'm sure I missed something out, but this is all I can think of and tolerate at the moment. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. Hopefully, something good will come of this. Story 2. My wife confesses to having an affair. Over 20 years ago, my wife confessed to having an affair that lasted approximately 3 years. She was in her late 30s. It was a gut punch that left me in disarray. I was a wreck. For 4 months, I abandoned her and my child, and moved in with our bachelor pal. We discussed divorce, and my wife said that she did not want a divorce. I chose to stay since I had 2 sons in high school. I had no desire to be a stay-at-home father. My wife and I are both from religious families. This was unexpected from my wife, which is why it caught me off guard. We continue to go to church on a regular basis and are active participants in church activities. However, we now go to different churches. It grew to the point that my thoughts about her affair were interfering with my concentration, especially at work. I eventually realized that I had no control over what my wife did. My perspective eventually started to alter. I told my wife that if she wanted to have a relationship with another guy, I was okay with it. She said that she would not be doing so. It took me about a year to change my mind. After a few years, both of our sons have graduated from college with advanced degrees and are fairly successful. This is something that would not have happened if we had divorced. In contrast, our life is non-existent. We get along most of the time, but things aren't the same after an affair, and I doubt they ever will be. I was at Lowe's a year after my wife's infidelity when I saw a close friend of the colleague with whom she had the affair. I asked whether the colleague had ever told him anything about my wife. At first, he refused to tell me anything. I ultimately persuaded him to open up and communicate with me. I remember exactly what he said to me. He said that a colleague told him that my wife really knew how to turn it on in bed. She knows how to bring it. That she had the greatest piece of heat ever had. That she had the of a high school student exquisite and tight. And that he became to her. His friend went on to tell me that the guy she had an affair with was reputed to have a big cock. I started to consider my wife's workplace and her interactions with other guys. It has been my escape in the absence of. That is unusual, to say the least. My wife acknowledged to me that she was having an affair, but she never told me anything about it, or when it started until a few years ago. I decided to begin taking notes on what she was saying. It was, in a way, therapy for me, and I must admit, I was getting a kick out of what she was saying. I record whatever she says to me using the recorder on my phone. It took months and was very time-consuming. I'd go through what I'd written again and ask my wife more questions. She isn't always receptive, but the more she realized that I wasn't reacting negatively to what she was saying, the more she opened up. I usually avoid questioning her on days when she's drinking wine, which is almost every day. Her lips tremble as she drinks her last glass of wine. I try to get as much information from her as possible. I try to get her to tell me how things got to that point, what she was thinking, feeling at the time she told me something. I tried to get her engaged with a couple of our bachelor friends to make my dreams come true, but she refused. Alex, our termite inspector, whom we'd known for years, was my next victim. Alex's wife died as a result of cancer. My wife and I attended her funeral and offered our respects. Alex had some time to recover from it. He'd tell us how much he missed her and how he'd never be in another relationship. My wife conveyed her condolences to Alex and her deep pity for him. To make a long story short, I succeeded. With Alex present, she started to share more and more about her past. I had a hunch something was going on between her, her boss, and another individual, other than her co-worker with which she had the affair. Back then, she'd tell me a few things about these other people to alleviate my concerns. I'm beginning to suspect that there was more to her prior stories. I would not have known about her job, or the other person if my mindset had not changed. She also started telling me about her conference experiences. I had no cause to be suspicious of her or her conference buddies. What a rude awakening for me. Listening to her really gives me a charge. My wife has kept her activities under wraps, and only a few people know about them. Even our old bachelor pal, who worked in the same division as my wife, was unaware of her romance.